Stay connected. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.
Before we get to the formal agenda, we have 4 public hearings. And the first one, this is a public hearing regarding the rezoning of a piece of property on River/Port Watson Street. And the tax ID is number 87.53-03-16.200. And this is the property that does not have an address because it is actually landlocked. It is slightly north of Port Watson, west of River. And this is one of 3 properties that Burn Dairy has purchased and is looking to use to develop a store. So public hearing is officially open, and I am looking in the group chat. Is there anybody present that would like to speak during the public hearing regarding the potential to rezone a piece of property on River and Port Watson Street? And for clarification, this is a property that is owned by Burn Dairy to potentially create a store on the southeast corner of the city of Cortland. And I see some people for comment. So if you've put in for comment, I'm assuming you want public comment, not this particular public hearing. And we do have 4 public hearings. If you would like to speak, you can also unmute yourself and please speak up. Let me know and I'll recognize you. We have potentially we've got 73 participants at this meeting currently. A new City of Cortland virtual meeting record. Second call.
Mayor Larry Knickerbocker.
Mr. Knickerbocker.
How are you tonight?
I am well. Would you like to speak on this?
I would. Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking on behalf of Bill Brothers, who's located adjacent to this parcel proposed development. There's just a few things I'd like to bring up here. First is that, as you're well aware, this is a zoning change and it's a legislative action which does not contain any specific time period to act within. So the council certainly has the ability to undertake further investigation regarding the comprehensive plan and the East End strategic plan to determine whether or not this zoning change actually comports with and conforms with that comprehensive plan. And that the need to do so was outlined by the county planning department in their recommendations. Also, when looking at that zone change, I think and the comprehensive plan, I think the character of the neighborhood has to be looked at, including the fact that in this particular instance, there will be a residential structure torn down. I think you have to look at the health and safety concerns, and there are children in that area and a school, pedestrians in the area. The proposal is that it's going to be open 24/7. And we know that there's at least one convenience store here in the city of Cortland that has significant difficulties, both criminally and otherwise, with such extensive hours. Also, regarding health and safety, I think you have to look at the increased traffic in the area. And there was a traffic study done, and it appears that the traffic is going to increase about a little over 50% if the proponent's plan is implemented. And also not only the increase in the volume of traffic, but the traffic flow and patterns that are there. The proposal is that the one exit out onto Port Watson Street would almost be, well, it'd be in very close proximity, not only to the stop sign, but also the traffic light there. And I think anybody that's been down in that area during high traffic hours knows the difficulties of traveling in that area and or when trains are there. Also, I think you have to look at the environmental concerns. They're planning on putting in a gas station there. It's over an aquifer. There's a high water table, and it's in close proximity to the river. And lastly, I think the council has to examine the potentiality of spot zoning. The change of this zone really is solely for the benefit of the developer. There's really no benefit to the neighborhood or area in question. And it's only for that particular reason that this is being requested. And that's really all I have, Mayor and Council.
Well, Judge, you timed it pretty well because that was, I think, almost exactly 3 minutes. Thank you. I did not mention it earlier, but we asked speakers to generally keep comments to 3 minutes or shorter. Thank you. I'm going to tell you who I have in terms of speaking and when, and if I'm not correct, please let me know, but I have to speak during the public hearing on the purchase of Parker School, Stevens and Haight, and then during public comments, Peterson and Ames. And you can, if you would like to put it someplace else, let me know if you would like to speak at a different point in time. But I do have a second speaker regarding this rezoning question, and it is Joe McMahon. Joe, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm on the City Planning Commission, been on there for about 10 years. Just a couple things to point out. When the traffic study was done, the study came out with 1 car increase per hour, not 50%. And another thing that keeps coming up is that the Planning Commission turned this proposal down. We actually unanimously approved this plan. We thought it was a good plan. Everything was in order. We think it's going to help the city tax base. It's going to help revitalize the southeast corner of town. And we just thought it was a good thing. So I just wanted to offer my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. And is there anybody else present that would like to speak regarding the proposal to rezone a parcel on the southeast corner of the city? And this is at request by Burned Dairy for development of a property. Very good. That was the third and final call. So we will call the public hearing officially closed and then officially opening public hearing regarding the abandonment of a portion of Alvina Avenue. Is there anybody present that would like to speak about the potential to abandon a portion of Alvina Avenue here in the city of Cortland? Public hearing is officially open.
I'm gonna go upstairs.
Okay.
And looking, I'm not seeing anybody. Second call. Anybody present that would like to speak about the potential to close a section of Alvina Avenue? And if you've not joined us previously, and since there's 78 people here, I'm guessing some of you have not heard about this, but we are collaborating with the hospital, Guthrie Cortland, to potentially seed a section of Alvina. And with that, they will be able to further renovate and develop their parking lot that's slightly to the north of Alvina and adjacent to Homer Avenue. And with that, it will be an improvement in terms of appearance, stormwater management, and paving a lot that is not currently paved. It will also improve the potential light pollution on neighbors. There's been public meetings held by the hospital. We've had a number of discussions. I know that I and some others have heard from some of the neighbors, and I believe that all their concerns have been appropriately addressed based upon discussions with the hospital. They've renovated some of the plans that they had made. Is there anybody present that would like to speak? Second call regarding the abandonment of a portion of Alvina Avenue. And before I do my third and final call, another point of information, I'd like to thank Nick Dovey and our Public Works Board, who did review, and there was questions regarding what happens with utilities. There are some pipes that are underground there, and that will be addressed in terms of the final agreement. That the city will have access to the utilities that we need to. The hospital will be responsible for theirs the same way that every other property owner is responsible for their own utilities. I know that that's come up at least on 1 or 2 occasions. So it is being addressed in terms of the final agreement. Third and final call regarding Alvina. Hearing none, seeing none, we will call the public hearing officially closed. And our third public hearing of the evening is open. This is for the effectiveness and the impact of the Community Development Block Grant 285 PW 130-18 project known as Clinton Avenue, North Greenbush and Washington Street Infrastructure Project. The public hearing is open. Is there anybody present that would like to speak to this evening? And if you do not know, that means you've probably not been down Clinton. In addition to Clinton, there is some water infrastructure work that is being done on North Greenbush and Washington. We were able to utilize some grant funding and to maximize it by picking up some additional work that was needed.
Did she see progress?
And we are continuing to improve upon the infrastructure here in the city. Second call, anybody present that would like to speak to this? Community Development Block Grant. And I am picking up a little bit of a conversation. I cannot identify yet who it is. So I'll ask everybody, if you are not muted, if you can mute and then unmute when it's your turn to speak, please and thank you. And I can still hear it, so I'm hitting mute all. And you can still unmute when it is your turn, if you so desire. Last call, Community Development Block Grant. This is the Clinton Avenue, North Greenbush and Washington Street Infrastructure Project. Anybody present like to speak? Hearing none, seeing none, we will call this one closed. And we will open our fourth and final public hearing of the evening. And this is regarding the potential purchase of Parker School by the city of Cortland. Public hearing is officially open. And the first person that I have up to speak, Sharon Stevens. Sharon.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to express my wholehearted support for the purchase of Parker and the development of the child care plan. I think that we have a inability to use all of our resources here because of the absence of childcare. And thinking about my own career, if I was working now, I probably would not be able to keep my job given the absence of childcare. And Parker is the perfect setting for that type of development. And on a personal note, I really think that the numbers that the consultant hired by the school district gave as to the improvements that had to be made in the school were inflated. I think the consultant told the school district what they wanted to hear in order to justify closing the school. So I just wanted to, as a member of the public, I just wanted to express my wholehearted support, and I hope that people vote to get this thing going. We need to get it underway now. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon. And we do have another 2 people already signed up. I'd like to go to Joanna Ames.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for affording me the time to speak, and thanks to Bob Haight from the Chamber for continually advocating for businesses in our community. I want to start by saying I can't speak to the financial viability of the Parker School project. Should you decide to move forward with this community opportunity, I hope that you'll conduct your due diligence, listen to the experts, and make sure that the long-term vision for the project is sound. I trust that the task force recommendations have been obviously reviewed and that the city would partner with the right people to determine the financial viability, the capital needs, and the overall sustainability. But what I can speak to is the challenge of daycare provision in our community and how that impacts me as an employer. The lack of affordable childcare in our community has a direct and negative impact on our ability of the workforce to obtain and to retain their jobs. We all know that to advance and to grow with a company or an employment opportunity, one must be consistently present. Many workers worry about the availability of safe and reliable childcare. Some choose to exit the workforce because they can't obtain such care in our community. I know that the pandemic only served to increase the challenges around daycare provision as the number of available slots decreased. And I also assume that I am one of many employers in town who desire to create more jobs, to offer more opportunities for advancement, but I can't do that consistently right now because the labor supply just simply isn't there. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. And Bob Haight. And if there's anybody else that would like to speak, please put it in the chat, raise your hand virtually or in person. Bob, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Tobin, and to the Common Council for giving me this chance again. I spoke with you 2 weeks ago, and at that time, I was giving you a lot of general statements with a couple of testimonials. Between then and now, I've had a chance to speak to several other business owners, including Joanna Ames, who just spoke. I appreciate her taking the time out of her busy schedule to not only do some research, but to join us tonight. What I did find was multiple business owners, and I'm going to read to you some quotes that they have shared with me. I also have this in written form, and I'm happy to send it to the Common Council so you can review it later as well. First was Craig Brooks, owner of Coffee Mania. Craig said, "This is not an issue today, but has been an issue in the past and will be again in the future. I can't speak to the viability of the Parker project. However, doing nothing is not an option. We need to make changes. Coffee Mania has had such an issue with childcare. They looked into creating their own childcare for employees." And then, of course, Craig shared with me, public speaking is not my thing, so please speak for me, Bob. Second was Eric Brown, who is the Director of Operations at Biomedical, Cortland Biomedical. Yes, childcare has been an issue with us. In fact, we had one employee who was hired and had to wait many months before they could take their job because of a lack of childcare. He believes it's also an issue preventing people from applying for jobs because they are unable to obtain childcare. He had people in town tonight, business related, so was unable to join us, but again, asked me to speak. Third is Corey Bliss, who is the Human Resource Director for Forey Construction and Fabrication. And Corey shared with me, this has been a problem as recently as the past month when 4 employees have missed time because of lack of childcare. She was out of town today and asked me to speak. And fourth is Nick Romano, who is the Human Resource Manager at Paul Corp, who said, yes, childcare has been a huge issue with our employees before COVID, during COVID, and through now. We had one woman, in fact, who had to quit her job because she couldn't get care for her child before and after school. It is an ongoing issue, and I encourage any plans to increase childcare availability. Nick wished he could speak to you tonight, but also had a work-related meeting at this very time. None of these business owners have been able to delve into any of the financial pieces that you're looking at for Parker and what the whole project would entail. So they really couldn't speak on that. What they could speak on and did very well, again, is what Joanna had emphasized to you. In order to get employees working to their potential and to get our businesses fully employed, childcare is a critical piece and needs to be addressed. And I would again just add that I think we are a community who has an opportunity to get this right, and we could be a model for others. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, Susan Williams.
Brian, I'm actually going to comment. I see Shelley has had her hand up a couple of times, but she didn't put her name in the box. Maybe I'll let her go first.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm sorry I missed that, but we do
Well,
have.
no, I'm just having trouble with my computer, so just bear with me because I'm coming from Marathon and the gerbils are quite slow tonight when the technology's running. So I am president of the board of directors of CAPCO, but I'm also a retired teacher and principal. And I am just urging you all to make this happen for all of the children and their families in the county. It is a problem in every locality. And You've already heard from businesses about the lack of childcare influencing hiring and actually keeping jobs. And there's one thing that CAPCO and the Y does really, really well, and that is to take good care of children. The plans are solid. CAPCO will be a sustaining partner in this venture, and the whole board is in full support of it. So I just urge you, please, to move forward with this so that we can build the workforce in the county, and we can create a base for the future of Cortland County by providing good childcare. And I thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Shelley. And then now, Susan.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to speak quickly, but with a couple of different hats on this evening. I am the Assistant Director at Seven Valleys Health Coalition. I'm also the Chair of the Governance Committee for the Cortland YWCA Board, and I'm a mom. And my daughter's 16 years old now, so she's more in the position of providing childcare as a babysitter, but I utilize the YWCA for childcare for my daughter at different times when she was a baby and a toddler. And I was very fortunate in having a flexible employer and having means and a situation to find childcare. I have a feeling if she was a young child today, even with means, I would probably be struggling. And those in our community who are without means are definitely struggling to find placement for their children. We offer a program at Seven Valleys that addresses social determinants of health. So, not providing health care, but transportation, food, connecting people with supports in the community. And the folks that are community health workers in our office hear day in and day out that not only transportation, but childcare is one of the obstacles to gaining employment in Cortland County. The other comment I wanted to make is, I know a lot of us keep saying in Cortland County, and we recognize that this is the city of Cortland that's being asked to step up. But I think the reality is you have the opportunity to do so. And so although the city is not necessarily responsible for the county, you can have a significant impact that no other entity right now could have in this area. So I would just like to speak strongly in support of this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And last call, is there anybody else present that would like to speak regarding Parker School? Very good. I'm scrolling through to see if I see any hands. We will call the public hearing regarding the potential for the city to purchase Parker School officially closed. And we can move on to calling the meeting to order. I'm trying to make sure I have everybody muted and ask you to rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There we go. And now we have the opportunity for public comments. Public comments, we ask that be kept to 3 minutes in length, that they are directed to council as a whole, that they are not derogatory or inflammatory, and that they deal with topics that the council can address. And I believe we have one person signed up for public comments, Dr. Gigi Peterson. Dr. Peterson, are you present?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor Tobin and council members and attendees for your attention. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and all the good work that I'm hearing about tonight from other members of the community. I'm among some community residents who seek clear, accurate information for our community about COVID safety measures so we can make informed decisions to protect health. I appreciate that Mr. Fred Pierce is here from the college tonight to present the college administration's perspectives on the situation and their information. I respectfully ask that the council allow some questions or comments afterwards, because there are others who have experiences in the classrooms that call for further inquiry, because there is the potential for COVID spread off campus. I am happy that the college has improved the vaccination rate of students attending the college. 57% arrived fully vaccinated, and that has increased. But vaccination alone can't prevent the spread. Physical distancing is not taking place on campus in classrooms. And as a community, we need clarity about testing and tracing so that resources and public information can be directed as needed. This comment emailed to me captures the common experiences of many residents who are also faculty. One of them wrote to me, "Thank you for making that important statement." This was last meeting before the city council. "Until last Thursday, fully 1/3 of my students were absent from class, either because of isolation, quarantine, or a positive test for COVID. The student who tested positive was seated about 4 feet away from me for the entire duration of my 75-minute class, yet no one from the county health department ever contacted me to do tracing. Communication broke down somewhere. I'm typical of many faculty. 12% of my own students have reported to me their positive COVID tests, but I only learned of one of them from the college itself. So as a resident, mindful of the connection between the campus and off-campus spheres, I would like to request the city to ask for this information from the appropriate authorities. 1, precise, well-documented data about positive cases reported through tests on campus and off campus, and clarity about what is reported and what is not. Reporting from our local health providers on individual test availability for all residents, including but not limited to students. Access problems may improve the case numbers, but they could contribute to potential spread of the variant. Also, documented clarity about the surveillance testing on campus. It's randomized, and we are hearing from students who have not been called for testing at all in the 6 weeks that have already transpired for our academic year. And finally, a statement from the county health department clarifying tracing protocols so members of the community know how that's working and whether or not more resources are needed. My positive student said that the tracer who called them never asked about classroom or other contacts, so that fits with the other faculty members' experience. I hope that the city and the college can engage in working out some of the kinks in these issues, and also in smart public health messaging about all of the above and more. Many of us who work on the campus are members of the community, and we care about our neighbors' health and well-being just as you do. Thank you very much.
Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody. It's only been a year and a half. I'm still adjusting. Is there anybody else that would like to speak during public comments? You can put your name in the chat box. Raise your hand virtually. Hearing none, seeing none, we will call. Oh, who am I missing?
Jeff Fitz, PA President.
Very good. Officer Fitz, I apologize. You're on page, I think 4. I've got 4 pages here.
Understandable.
But the floor is yours.
Hello, thanks for your time. I've been the PBA president for over 14 years now, or correction, I've been an officer for over 14 years. I've been PBA president for 5 years. And we have a lot of questions amongst our membership. The last 6 months, for instance, we've gone without a promotion of a road sergeant. It's the first time we've seen it since I've been here and I've ever heard of it. And our question to you, Mayor, and the Common Council is, we just want some transparency and we'd like to know why. The membership and the officers in your city are wondering when there'll be some upward mobility, a chance to be proud and serve their community as a supervisor. Every 2 years, the state civil service test is given, and there were 3 people that were valuable candidates for 2 years, and that list was expunged because there was no promotion allowed. The person that was the top of the last list is an officer that has over a decade of service, Officer Brennan Burns. It would have been very unfortunate if he didn't make that top 3 again, but thankfully he's the number 1 again. And it would just be fair to him and the other officers who all have over a decade of service in this community to be told when, if ever, the city plans to allow the chief of police to promote somebody, because we've been told that the Common Council is not allowing him to promote an officer. And we don't know why. And it hurts us and it hurts our families. And it doesn't show the young officers that there's upward mobility in this agency in a time where we're having a hard time keeping officers it is. In the last 11 years, there's only been 4 promotions in a small agency in 11 years. And in that 11 years, we've lost an officer to transfer every single year. So we're asking for your help. And I know you're working with us in contract negotiations. And I know we're not just negotiating with you, we're negotiating with the Common Council, and we need your help. We are your servants, and we're here for you. And we're hoping for your answers and some understanding. We need transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I want to say thank you, and I think the best that I can provide to the public is that we are in negotiations, and do not feel it would be appropriate for me to discuss in a public session. We're going to move on to our ward reports, and I'm going to start with the first ward, Sam Adams.
Alrighty. I did have one call about Alvina with utilities, but you covered that, so that's good. A couple calls about some garbage and code complaints that have either been resolved or I'm currently looking into, but otherwise it's pretty quiet in the first ward.
Thank you. Second ward, Katie Silliman.
Hi, good evening. It's been noisy in the second ward. Those of us who live near student houses have noticed many students gathering in the streets. There's been a lot of yelling late at night, and it's taxing our police force to trying to help us with that. A lot of those people are just walking back and forth. So I would just ask that when it's dark, please be quiet in the streets. That's all anybody wants. I got a phone call about an abandoned car on Maple Ave. There is also a couch on Maple Ave that's been run over a few times, that's been abandoned. So I will be contacting codes about that. There's also, I got a call about growth that's affecting sidewalk traffic on Pleasant Street and Harrington. So I'll be talking to codes about that. And I got 2 emails in support of our current blue bag trash program. And one email that you forwarded, Mr. Mayor, with suggestions about how to basically have the same program, but improve upon it where people wouldn't have to buy the actual blue bags. So that's interesting. And I know we're going to be talking about that at a later time. That's it from the second ward.
Very good. Third ward, Bruce Teitler.
Yeah, I have several things, Mayor. Thank you. I have some people have talked to me about the litter just around the city in general. We had a young elementary student doing some government lessons with her mom, and she even asked her mom, why is there so much litter in our community, and why don't people care about that? And so I'm asking everyone to let's step up our game a little bit here and pick up the litter around our neighborhood, and have the store owners downtown make a renewed effort to clean up around their storefronts. And just in general, let's have a little more pride in the city and pick up the litter. And along with that, I was just so disappointed, disgusted to read in the paper today that Angela Thurlow, a long-time dedicated member of this community, actually took it upon herself to set a trash can in front of her lawn so all the students walking down Tompkins Street after the bars could just throw it in the trash can. What is so difficult about that? And not only did they want to throw it in there, somebody tipped all the garbage all over her lawn. It's disgusting. It's despicable whoever did that. So, I'm just thoroughly disappointed. And it's not to paint all students with that same brush, because most of them are so respectful and they would never have done that. And if they had known about it, someone would have come down the next day and cleaned her lawn up. I have no doubts about that. But that is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. And it's just, I'm asking people, let's have a little more respect for each other and for our community. And having said that, I would like to thank DPW and our police department for responding to several issues that I asked them about. I appreciate that. I know how busy you guys are. And then I would like to make one request on the budgeting, Mayor. I would like to see some money put into the budget for varmint removal. We definitely have a woodchuck issue here, and I think next year we need to put some money in the budget to spend a year or two dealing with it like we used to as a municipality, and see if we can't reduce that population. And the last thing I want to speak to very briefly is the Parker School project, Mayor. I've been talking to people all over the community about that. I've had one person say absolutely not. I've had several people say they're all in, and I've had several people say, we want to make sure that the city isn't going to be responsible. There's some kind of a disturbance there. Some people can mute themselves. Thank you. The city isn't going to be responsible. And I would just like to say this on that. They're good people, some longtime residents of this community. They're not just somebody just showed up yesterday to sell us 76 trombones. These people believe they have the funding. They believe they can pull this off. America is a land of opportunity, and sometimes you have to take a chance on an opportunity. And if all goes well, then we're going to be building back better our child care. And if all goes south, we've been told by our corporate counsel, we just sell the building if it doesn't turn out. So, and I'd like people to remember that this is a private public project in terms of support. And Bob, if you could send us those comments, I would appreciate that. That was good to hear that. And I believe that public-private projects almost always work out for the good. I'm in favor of this project, Mayor. I would like us to put out voting tonight because we have a couple people that are not going to be here, and I would prefer the process. We give everybody an opportunity to be here to voice. This is probably, for me, one of the most important votes I'm going to take on the Common Council. And I would like to have a full council to do that. So I just want people to know where I stand on this, but I would like to wait till we have a full council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Bruce. Fifth Ward, Jackie Chapman. Jackie, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Sorry. Several neighbors recently have expressed their excitement at several of the roads in the South Ward that are very close to completion, and they're very excited about that. And just today, I received a note from a gentleman in the Fifth Ward who was very concerned about the intersection light at Main and Huntington. His concern is that it automatically operates after school hours, and so there's a big delay in traffic moving when there's no pedestrian. And so I was just going to go ahead and speak with DPS about that. And everything else has been pretty calm.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jackie. And the Seventh Ward, Troy Beckwith.
Evening all. Just a quick update. Obviously, we've been driving around the project at the old Apex Cooper Tool. They had numerous names. Anyways, moving forward quite rapidly, and it's looking really good. They're doing a good job. Other than that, comment on Bruce Tytler's motion or comments to postpone the Parker School. I'm all in favor of doing that as well. There's two, I think we need a full board on to make a accurate and decision on that project. And also, I'd like to. I guess that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Troy. Tom Michaels from the 8th.
Just a few things from the 8th, Mayor. Want to thank Intertech as well as some other volunteers for chipping in on the Clinton Ave cleanup at the little park at the end there. The mulch, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to drive down through there, but the mulch really makes a difference with that plot of garden there. Making the rounds to each department head just to discuss their budget needs And I'm going to keep doing that for the next week or so. I want to thank our fire department for the quick response. Bellevue Gardens to put out a bathroom fan fire. That could have been much worse, but the quick response, they were able to knock that down in a hurry. And once again, I want to thank Wayne and his crew for an excellent job. Also thanking the fire department again. We had a rough night last night regarding all the rain. I don't know if anyone happened to venture out to see where the flooded areas were. The fire department was down in my area, Kellogg Road. I went down and visited residents whose basements were taking on water. And we got an issue there with an aging drywall that should have been replaced years ago. Mayor Tobin may have recalled when I mentioned this back when Mayor Gallagher was our mayor. It's been that long, and we haven't done anything with that project yet. Nick does tell me that there's some plans in the work, but I think this is something that we need to push along. And regarding Parker School, I'm totally in favor, 100% of early education for our children. But there's some things that I don't think I see that are really coming together as quick as I like to see them. And I don't know whether a timeline would be sufficient as to how all this funding is supposed to come into play. But right now, I'm basically hearing that we have this and we have that, but I have no clear idea of when all this is supposed to happen. I want to thank Lindy for supplying me with the financial information that I asked for 2 weeks ago. I had a chance to look at that today, as well as reviewing what Kelly sent after the meeting 2 weeks ago. But that still raises some financial concerns that I'm still not quite sure what our rent might be on a monthly basis, as well as where the cleanup money is going to come from to address lead abatement and asbestos and some of those other issues that will come into play at some point. But that's all I have for now, and I'm sure we'll have further discussion on some of this in the future. Thanks, Mayor.
Very good. Hold on to them. It is on the agenda, so feel free to raise the questions in a little bit. Mayor's report. I'm going to keep this short. I have spoken with Nick Dovey. Clinton, the construction work taking place on Clinton and Owego in Delaware. Clinton is moving along well. Owego, there's still some work to finish it up before we can pave. And Delaware, we're partnering with one of the utility providers. They still need to complete what they are doing, but all three projects, knock on wood, within the next month-ish, we should see completion. At least with the current phases, there's more to come on Clinton, but that's to be discussed later. Let's focus on one thing at a time. One question for council. Can we entertain an executive session to talk about contract negotiations at the end?
I'll make the motion.
Very good. Is there anybody against? We don't need to take a formal vote. Not expecting any formal action afterwards, just informational. And that moves us to our proclamation for the evening. And this is with regard to Fire Prevention Week, which is October 4th through the 10th. Hey, this week. So whereas the city of Cortland is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally. Homes are located where people are at the greatest risk of fire. And home fires killed almost 3,000 people 2 years ago, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the U.S. responded to almost 340,000 home fires. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before people can, they can alert us to danger in the event of fire, in which we may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. And working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And City of Cortland residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas the 2021 National Fire Prevention Week theme, Learn the Sound of Fire Safety, effectively serves to remind us that it is important to learn the different sounds of smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Now, therefore, I, Brian Tobin, Mayor for the City of Cortland, hereby proclaim this week in 2021 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the City of Cortland, and I urge everyone to learn the sounds of fire safety for Fire Prevention Week and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Cortland Fire Department. And side note, I know that we had a crew that was over at Berry School talking with the youngsters a week or two ago about fire safety. That's our proclamation for the evening. And minutes. We have the opportunity to approve minutes from the September 21st meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes and file them as is? Motion by Katie Silliman. Does it have support from, yes, Tom Michaels? And council, if you can unmute yourselves, we need to be able to see and hear you. All those, well, any questions or alterations recommended for the minutes? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of filing the minutes as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Passes 6-0. And agenda item number 1, update on COVID-19 safety protocols at SUNY Cortland. Joining us this evening, all the way from SUNY Cortland, Frederick Pierce. Mr. Pierce, welcome. Can you unmute yourself? We are excited to hear from you.
Well, thank you. It's as always great to be back and let you know how things are going at Cortland in terms of our fight with the pandemic. And certainly, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has to the best of my ability. Once I'm done, if I don't have the answer, I'll get it for you. Unlike some of the trips I've made here, updates, this is actually one that's more positive. After the initial spike that SUNY Cortland, along with many other college campuses, saw when the students first returned, the infection rate and the number of cases have dropped dramatically and consistently. It's now below the state average. And currently we have 3 active student cases. And we're not using any of our quarantine facilities. We have 64 quarantine isolation beds available. And as some of you may remember from last year when I spoke, we were renting hotel rooms to try to accommodate the difference.
Yeah.
We and the county health department are very pleased with what's been happening. Part of that, and again, we all know there is no one thing to do to stop COVID. It's a number of things to try to limit the spread. One of the keys is obviously vaccination. That was under SUNY mandate. All students had to become vaccinated or have an authorized and approved religious or medical exemption. Right now, close to 94% of all of our students are fully vaccinated. Of the remainder, we have a good number. Many of them are fully remote and have submitted forms attesting that they will not be to campus for any reason at all. We have about 200 that have either religious or medical exemptions that have been authorized. And we have 4 students who we have not been able to get hold of, haven't responded to repeated calls or emails. And at this point, they will be dismissed this week. We started again, this was mandatory by the SUNY system, and they built into it a period, not a grace period, but they realized that not everybody was going to be able to get vaccinated before they came to campus. They gave the campuses till September 27th to bring people into compliance. Once that date came, they gave an extra 10 days to make a last-ditch attempt, because we realized that a lot of the students who we didn't have verified as vaccinated were the remote students who maybe had one or two classes and weren't paying attention to their emails. They saw the word COVID and didn't think it pertained to them. There's also been some confusion about the 57% of the students that were vaccinated on campus. That's true, but those were verified vaccinations, meaning that we were able to have proof and verify that they had had both shots of a 2-dose vaccine, and it was 2 weeks after that period. Right now, and I should have said, some of the students who are not fully vaccinated are in that category where they're just waiting for those 2 weeks to pass, and then till they can be actually put into the fully vaccinated category. But there were many students, many beyond the 57%, who were fully vaccinated, but we were not able to verify it. We used, SUNY developed a system that tied into the New York State vaccination database, and there were a lot of issues with that interface, and it took us a while to work through it. But things are looking good right now. By comparison, Cortland County as a whole is about 55% vaccinated. So when it comes to that, SUNY Cortland is a pretty safe place to be. We are also doing surveillance testing. And right now we are testing more than any other, well, at least last week when I checked, according to our the last 2 week period, we had tested more than any other SUNY comprehensive campus. We'd actually tested more than SUNY Binghamton and the University of Buffalo, where they had about 3 times the population that we have, but fewer tests were being performed. As Dr. Peterson pointed out, when we initially began the semester and we had that spike, and I think it's safe to say that the Delta variant, the vaccine did not prove as effective against the Delta variant as we had all anticipated and hoped. I think County Health Department has said that about a quarter to 30% of all the cases they're seeing are breakthrough cases, people who were fully vaccinated, but became ill regardless, which goes to the point that you can't just do vaccination. We have a mask mandate on campus. Whenever you are in a building, you have to be wearing a mask. When you are outdoors, if you're at a campus organized event, you have to be wearing a mask. The thinking is that's when people are likely to be together. And we are still trying to educate students to this and enforcing it. And overall, we're getting very good compliance. Is it perfect? No, but we are working on it. And I'll have to be honest, it's tough to persuade students that is what they have to do when they are fully vaccinated, and when they're out in the community, they see a lot of people in Walmart and in Tops not wearing masks, and they don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. Contact tracing, during the spike, there were issues getting students tested in a timely manner. I think there was a shortage of tests most everywhere. At one point, we were sending students far and wide to try to get tests, but we have since developed greater capacity. We're able to not only do more, send students through surveillance testing if they desire to be tested, but we are also able to test students when they are symptomatic. And I will say that according to our health officials and county officials, and just the number of students we see coming through, students are being much more conscientious about calling the health center and getting tested when they have symptoms. And that's caused many of in the beginning, we had significant numbers of absences in campus. Again, as Dr. Peterson said, contact tracing was also an issue in the beginning. The contact tracing is done entirely by the county health department. And as most of you know, they have asked and received the ability to hire additional contact tracers. They are still in the process of doing that. For the most part, the county says that our students have been very responsive to contact tracing and sharing who they've been with. Part of the problem with classroom situations, and I did, because we did hear that complaint that they weren't being asked in classrooms. The county health department said that should be being done. And so we've made them aware of it, and I anticipate that is happening now, whereas it may not happen previously. One thing that is happening in classrooms, when students are tested for contact tracing, they don't always know the names of the students they're sitting next to. The professor doesn't always know who was sitting next to the student. Some classes have assigned seating. We've recommended it. But when you have some of the larger lecture classes, it's very, very difficult to do that. So we still haven't found a great solution, but we're working our way through it. I did want to say that we have also begun planning for next semester. Next semester, our intent is to set it up where COVID vaccination will be like MMR vaccinations, a required part of going to college. So there won't be this extended grace period and the rush to get everybody vaccinated before they come on campus. It will be required before you come. And that's what we've begun talks to figure out how to develop that system so it works. So as everything with COVID, nothing is perfect, but things are going well. The county health officials, state officials, and SUNY administration are all, we've had visits to campus and they're pleased with what we're doing. That said, there will always be issues, and I appreciate people bringing them to our attention so we can try to find a solution to them. And whatever questions are out there, I'll be happy to try to take them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pierce. I understand, and I did have a request from Katie Silliman to give the opportunity for questions. Council, are you open to questions for Mr. Pierce and for more than council?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Mayor.
Well, Fred just said that he's open to answering questions, and in previous discussion, and I think it might be in the chat, Katie had asked as well, is it okay to take questions from people beside council? And as a point of information for the public, this is a city council meeting, so typically we allow council, myself, who is responsible for conducting the meeting, and then who do we recognize to speak? So Katie has asked, can we recognize other people and allow them to ask questions? Katie, you're muted, if you can.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'd like to recognize Gigi Peterson and the other people that she spoke about to ask questions. And I also have a couple questions of my own.
And I'd say, how about if we start with Katie, questions from council, see where we get from there, and then have the opportunity to open it up. So Katie, why don't you get us started?
Okay. Mr. Pierce, thank you so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to hear that currently you only have 3 active student cases, and I'm thrilled that the COVID vaccine will be required just like any other vaccine that's required in order to attend school. I also work in a school district, and I'm hoping that my district takes that same step. My concern is student behavior in the community. So I'm wondering how many students are housed in the community?
We have, it's probably about around 2,500.
2,500.
Living in the, and that's a rough. I can try to get a better number.
Sure.
An exact number because there are commuter students. And
Sure. I appreciate that. So I don't know if you know, but I live on Pleasant Street in the thick of a student, right next to Clayton Ave, which has a lot of student rentals. We get a lot of student traffic, and that can be a wonderful thing. But my concern is that we see a lot of gatherings and students are not masked when they're gathering together, playing beer pong at a party. And so we know that the COVID variant can jump, the Delta variant can jump and affect people whether they've had their vaccines or not. So I'm wondering what's being done to educate students about safe practices when they're not on campus, considering so many are off campus. What's being done to educate them about COVID safe behaviors, regardless of being vaccinated? We're seeing a lot of people, not just students, you know, you yourself reference people in Walmart who aren't wearing masks. People seem to feel like, oh, it's, you know, we can relax. We can't relax. You know, we have to still be masking, and they could be part of that forefront of setting a higher standard. So that's my big question is how are you educating students about their off-campus behavior? Thanks.
We have done off-campus outreach, and we know we need to do more. Off-campus students were an Achilles heel of ours last year. And I know in conversations with police, they haven't seen the huge house parties that caused super spreader events, but what they're seeing a lot of is, you know, students gathering in other places and not wearing masks. And unfortunately, young people tend to think of themselves as invulnerable to begin with, and they sometimes consider vaccination to be this kind of invisible shield that will protect them. And we know that's not the case. We are working with students on campus to develop peer-to-peer messaging. And we do need to strengthen that. That hasn't gotten off the ground to the extent we'd like, mainly because we've been so focused on vaccinations and all of the other things we're trying to do on campus. But off campus, we, as I said, I know we've done it as students. When classes first started, we had members from student affairs. We're going door to door to student housing and handing out literature on safe behaviors. But it needs to be, it really does need to come from the students themselves. They have to get to a point where they don't feel like they're being wimpy or nerdy or something if they put on a mask, that it's acceptable among their peers. And I think once they leave campus, there's a lot of that going on. So your concern is valid, and we will continue to work to try to address it.
I would like to hear that there is an expectation. I understand that students are going to have more influence on students, but as a university, I would like to believe that there is an expectation that's conveyed that they respect and protect the community they live in, and that they have the potential to be leaders in the community. We have a lot of little kids. They interact with a lot of young children in our community. people see them, those kids see them at Walmart. People see them on Main Street, and they can have a big positive impact. And that's really what we need. And we need that to be conveyed at the highest level and carried on down. So thank you for your efforts. And I hope that they are redoubled, honestly.
No, thank you. I will tell you that that is the expectation, but I think we would agree that it needs to be communicated more clearly and more strongly.
Okay, thank you.
And Brian,
Bruce Tyler.
a couple of things. First of all, thanks for coming to the council meeting today, Fred. I know it makes for a long day for you and others from the community. We often invite people from the community to come in and address us on different issues, and it makes for a long day for folks. So thanks for coming in. And you said you only have 3 active student cases currently. Is that total population, or is that just on campus?
What's total population?
Total population. Okay. Well, that's encouraging. And Katie made some very, very good points. And so I don't have to restate those. And at the same time, I would like to call attention to a couple of things that are going on too. We have the ability to test several of your dorms at once in our sewer flumes. And I saw the results from that from the last test of the end of September. And all those numbers are down from where they were just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, in 1, 2, 3, 4 of those flumes, which encompass several dorms, the virus, which is a wider area, our numbers are also down from where they were a couple of weeks ago, but they're higher than they were with the campus testing. So that's intriguing to me. And Katie's right about our students studying, being role models. And I spoke in my award report about what I would like to see the students and everybody take a little more pride in the community. And you made a very good point. These students, they go to a store and they see other people that aren't wearing a mask. And I understand exactly where they're coming from. And I would point out to folks that a few weeks ago, members of the county got together for a social event in a community not far from here in our county. I saw the pictures on Facebook, and they weren't students. They were adults and their kids, and I didn't see anybody in those pictures having a mask. So it really is a much bigger issue. And I know you can only focus on the student side, but I do ask people to realize this is a bigger issue. And please wear the mask. I don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to look out for their own children. I am just befuddled by that. So please wear the masks. Please get vaccinated. We will get through this. We're making headway, but it's not over yet. And so I really encourage to hear that out of all your student population, you only have 3 students that are currently having COVID, and I wish them a speedy recovery. We have had many members of our community that have not recovered from this COVID in the last year and a half. And in fact, a few more just this week. So it's still out there, folks. We have to take it seriously. And thanks for coming, Fred.
I'm glad you brought up the wastewater the wastewater testing. This is an initiative we began last year, and it really, where it helps us is in surveillance testing. And I should say that currently, all students who are not fully vaccinated have to get tested once a week. We have the system set up and we track it. All other students are tested randomly throughout. We test probably, well, it varies from week to week, but it's probably about 1,000 students a week that are fully vaccinated who we're testing, and they're selected at random unless the wastewater testing, which we can do by residence hall, gives us an indication that there's a presence of COVID, that the virus is in that building. Then we target our testing. And this is something that, although it's valuable because it enables us to find where the problems are and quarantine and isolate very quickly before it can spread, but it also will give us high positives. I know there are other campuses I will share in the SUNY system where when they had a student that tested in the residence hall, they wouldn't test the surrounding students. They would just quarantine everybody. which what that meant is when you go to the SUNY tracker, the number of positives would be lower than it almost certainly was. We want to know what the problem is, and we want to try to deal with it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Mayor, in terms of your question, if Fred is okay answering questions from others that aren't on the council, then I'm certainly okay with that. But that's not, we don't do that. We invite people up here with the expectation they'll be interacting with council people. So I would, I would give him the option of whether he wants to expand the questions or not. I think that would be the respectful thing to do when we invite people to present and speak in front of the council. That's my view.
As long as we're all civil, and I can't imagine people wouldn't be civil, no problem at all.
Okay.
Council members, are there any further questions from council for Mr. Pierce? So there are some questions in the chat, and I'm going to try to moderate this discussion. And I'm going to preface by saying that there are things that the city cannot do, and there are things that do not fall under the city's purview. So I will try to direct and answer as is appropriate. So I did have the opportunity to exchange emails with Dr. Peterson, and part of my response, I have a question from Mr. Borden. I'd like to ask some questions regarding following excerpts, and this is number 4 of a number of questions, as for student being tested. And I replied, and for those that do not know, I do work at SUNY. I am the head swimming and diving coach. I have 66 student athletes currently. Just to give a little bit of background about my perspective, not just as mayor, but also working at SUNY. I replied that I've had kids that said, hey, I'm concerned, I want to get a test. And they may not have been able to get a test at SUNY immediately, but they were able to obtain one in the community from a drugstore. And I know that my family has utilized the same method, and people can obtain tests on their own. I hope that explains a little bit. Number 5, contact tracing. And I read about this, that the county was looking to hire additional contact tracers. However, that's done at the county level through the health department. So that's about all I can share is what I've read. And then number 6, reporting of cases. And I said that I understood that there had been a problem in terms of the communication within the system. And Fred, I think you touched upon that earlier. Basically, and if I'm incorrect, if you want to expand, but what SUNY Cortland and then SUNY system has a way for people to compare. And there was some issues, and it was the system that was being utilized. It was not a local issue that could be addressed. It's a computer issue.
I think the SUNY tracker itself has caused many issues. A lot of it, they get their information from the campuses. We provide them what we have, and they get it from the county health departments as well. What the problem is, one of the problems is the tracker was developed last year when there was a system in place that required mandatory lockdown of campuses if you had a certain number of cases within a 2-week period, or your infection rate hit 5% during that 2-week period. So it's all built around that system, which makes it difficult to read and can be confusing. Also, there is often a difference, and this is why we used to have our own dashboard that we put up information, but too often it differed from what the SUNY tracker had. So now we just give everything to SUNY and rely on them. They have, occasionally mistakes are made, and hopefully we correct them quickly. I know at one point, the SUNY tracker listed SUNY Cortland as having a fatality, which is, as you can imagine, gave us all quite a few heart attacks. But again, that was a glitch, and we were able to correct it. And then in terms of the communications, we're trying to verify vaccination. The state has a huge vaccination database. When people fill out, they get their cards, it all goes into this database. And what we're learning is if there is any information that the students are providing to us that doesn't match exactly what they provided during their test, if they use their home address, for example, or our address, if they use a nickname instead of their full name, it won't match. And we have to track it down, and it takes considerable amount of personnel time to do that. That's why it's taken us so long to get to where we are.
All right, thank you, Fred. Tom Michaels.
Hi, Fred. Hey, just a quick question. Has the college come across any fake vaccination cards?
No, we have not. I know that there was, I want to say Buffalo State, but I may be wrong. They did run into it, and the DA actually got involved. It's pressed criminal charges. We had not seen that. I'd like to think that, I mean, the amount of effort that takes compared to just getting a shot is kind of astounding. But, and we have not seen it, and we're hoping we don't. I think it's safe to say that if we did run across that, that student would no longer be a SUNY Cortland student.
That's good to know. I know some other individuals have some questions, and the council, when it comes to the college, is kind of gray in some areas. So we appreciate you stepping up to the plate from time to time to give us a quick update. But really, the college is a community within a community, and the only time we really get any feedback is when we either hear it from residents or teachers or students, or yourself when you come on board.
I'm happy to come whenever you'd like me.
Thank you.
Very good. There are more questions in the chat, but if I can shift gears, there were, I think, 3 questions that Dr. Peterson had put forward during public comment. One was asking for precise data about cases. And the second one, a document about clarity in terms of surveillance testing. The city, first one, precise data about cases. Early on, the city and some other local electeds have asked at the county level, at the health department, to share more information about where cases are. Can we know, in terms of the county total of cases, how many were in the 13045 area code, zip code, for example? And the county has declined to provide that information. So there's information that we do not have. And the third question about health department tracing, again, that's best directed to the county. So the first and third one, I think, need to be directed to the county health department. And then the second one, a document regarding clarity on surveillance testing. I'm sorry, but I don't think city government is the right place to ask that. That needs to go through another avenue. And I said this in my email to Dr. Peterson. SUNY is a state institution, and they are beholden to the state laws and state rules. And the SUNY system is overseen by a chancellor. So in terms of the educational system, they report essentially to the chancellor. And with regard to things such as zoning, we have zoning laws in the city. However, SUNY institutions, being state institutions, do not have to hold to local laws such as that. So we have, as a local entity, limited capacity to do much in terms of some of these things, which is why we're appreciative that we do have a good working relationship and we're able to communicate effectively with things such as this. Dr. Peterson, you're asking about messaging from top college officials about masking. I think that's a good conversation for you to have with the college, but not appropriate for this meeting. And in my email, I said I'd be more than happy to meet with you and we can discuss individually, along with anybody from council. But we have a full agenda and I'd like to keep this meeting moving forward. Next question, Nicole Mix. A lot of students go to bars, and like most other places, masks are not required. That being said, bars are packed and obviously no social distancing. And the next one is along the same line, downtown establishments, and talk about the lines outside of establishments. So bars, restaurants, they have standards that they have to adhere to. And not just the city police department, but also the state liquor authority and the city code department in the past have been diligent about checking and making sure that these institutions, that these businesses are living up to the standard. And I would give $1 if somebody can go in and say that every person in an establishment is a SUNY Cortland student. There's a mix. And we might be making some assumptions here. And yes, it might be the majority of people, but is the establishment's responsibility to conduct business in accordance with state and local laws. And we hold them to the standard. And if we have people that are getting in trouble when they're there, then that's on them. And if the business or the establishment gets in trouble, then that's on them. And we are holding them accountable. 1 second, Katie, I want to talk about the lines outside, because this has come forward more than once. And essentially, businesses are not responsible outside of their business. Now they have property and they can be responsible for their property right outside. They can say, hey, we don't want you loitering here, but a public sidewalk is a public sidewalk. And if there are people around the corner or in front of the next establishment, the next property owner, and we have had in-depth conversations about this, it's not that property owner's responsibility. So we've had, I think, a good conversation with restaurant and tavern owners, and we've asked them to manage lines outside, and if that's an issue, fully intend to have that conversation again. But there's limits in terms of what they can actually do effectively with regard to lines. So Katie Silliman, you had a hand raised.
What is the law currently about masking in establishments?
Can't even tell you the last time I was in a bar. Should have put Chief Sandy on the spot.
I believe those guidelines are up to the establishment, just as they are other private businesses,
Okay.
where they can set their own policy.
If we could stop students from going to bars, we would have done it a long time ago.
Mr. Borden, you're asking if you can ask your questions regarding testing and contact tracing. Again, I don't believe the city can influence that. You can write them in the chat, but I don't think we can actually address those here.
Can I say, if there are questions that don't pertain to the city but are just SUNY Cortland, feel free to reach out to me, frederick.pierce@cortland.edu. And I'll try to get your answers from the, as they're relevant to SUNY Cortland.
Very good. And Dr. Peterson, the city is affected by SUNY Cortland, absolutely. And we are treating every city resident consistently. And we're not trying to say that it's faculty or staff or people that work at a business or students. We are holding everybody to the same standard. And that's why when we talk about things such as Main Street, gathering spaces, we recognize their importance, but we also work to hold everybody to the same standard. Doesn't matter if we live here 9 months out of the year, if it's a snowbird that's here 6 months out of the year, or if we're year-round residents that have been a resident for a year or all of our lives. Consistency.
It seems like we could use some clarification around what that standard is. And how much control do we have over what establishments do? If we set a standard as a council and establishments do their own thing, then our standard doesn't mean very much, does it?
Well, in terms of standards, do you want to do something that's more restrictive than the current state law?
That's what I was wondering, is what is the current state law, that it's up to each establishment? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
So I would suggest that we could make that a agenda item for the next council meeting, and we can talk about if there's things. We have worked, and I thought it went very well, actually, when we said, hey, if you're going to have a public gathering, if you're going to have a gathering of 50 or more, that we want to see your COVID safety plan. There was a number of people that took the time and effort. I was heartened that members of the faith community were asking, and I said, hey, you're exempt based upon state law, but it would be a great show of faith if you were to share what you're doing. And a number, basically everybody who called and asked about the mayor's executive order was more than happy to file. SUNY did the same thing. They said, hey, here's what we are doing. Had a good conversation with Bob Edwards up at the school, and we talked about it. So I think we're to a place where the majority get it. We're doing what we need to.
Sorry.
And we know. Go ahead, Katie.
So it'd be reasonable to ask bars and restaurants and other large gathering places to do the same, wouldn't it?
We can, I say we make that topic of discussion. If you want to do it this evening, I'd ask if we can put that to the end of the agenda so we have opportunity to move on through
No, next time works for me. Thank
the other
you.
17 items.
Yeah,
Or we can wait till next one.
next time.
Very good. And if people have questions, they're always welcome to reach out directly to myself or your council member. There's 8 people on council who are very concerned and passionate about keeping us all safe. And I'm pleased and privileged to be in that group. And I'd like to think that I do the same, that we're doing everything we can within the law to make sure that we are encouraging appropriate behavior and discouraging inappropriate behavior. And again, for all of our citizens. So I thank everybody for the discussion. And again, if we want to continue it, we can. But we're going to move on to agenda item number 2, which is a resolution to approve a special event application along with all other required applications for the Pumpkin Chunkin on Thursday, October 21st from 2:30 to 5 p.m. at Yeaman Park. We have a motion to consider. Katie Silliman, second. Jackie Chapman, discussion.
Are they actually going to be chunking pumpkins across Yeaman Park? I mean, what?
Looking
Yes.
for Stacy. There you are.
Yeah, here I am. Hi.
Council, if we can recognize Stacy Hagedorn, she is here to speak to this. She is the person who has submitted the application. Stacy, if you can give some details to council and the public about what you have planned, please.
Okay, so we have engineering at each one of the businesses that are going to be participating. So it's Voyant Beauty, which used to be Marietta, Intertac, Alpla, Bottle Blowing. Those 3 businesses have engineering, departments, and we just thought it would be kind of a fun lift everybody's spirits after these last 18 months. It's in a safe manner. We've got 3 engineering teams. I apologize. I have a puppy who's making a bunch of noise. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. We've all been
Sorry. Anyway, so we're basically, long story short, I was hanging out with some of my engineering friends at Intertech, and I said, my engineers are better. And then we just decided that Tom Michaels is on here, and I know him. He's probably understanding where all this came from. But anyway, so we just kind of turned it into, wouldn't it be amazing if we were able to do something amazing for the community and for, kind of get people's, spirits moving in a different direction than they have been the last 18 months. It's an outside facility with the water in the middle. We can have the chunking over on one side, and all of the engineers, just so you know, are working very diligently to make sure that they don't get chunked too far. We plan on having it in one direction. We have our HES coordinators, with each of our sites, working with us to make sure that it's safe, because, it's safety for our people is our number 1 priority. And just long story short, we're like, wouldn't it be amazing if we also tossed in, helping the community right before the holidays, and we're gonna do it with the food, food drive. And so, now there's not only who can, and we're not building the big Trabergés. We're just doing like a smaller, almost like a water balloon slingshot, but we're going to do pumpkins and the different engineering teams are building safety precautions. So they have backdrops and stuff that they're all doing. And just so you guys know, the Boy Scouts heard about it and they rolled in and told us they were going to kick our butts. So it's 3 businesses with professional engineers, and if it's between us, I'm fairly certain the Boy Scouts are going to kick our butts because they do this every year. So, but anyway, so we are going to throw pumpkins. We have a cleanup committee. We have a farm that's willing to take the pumpkins. We would love to leave the park exactly as we found it. So, and we just thought it would be a great kind of thing to do for the community. And, we've identified 4 or 5 different food banks with the help of the United Way that we can, donate this food and money to. And long story short, we're just trying to switch it up, do something outside where it's safe, COVID friendly, and have a little fun and give back to the community right before the holidays.
So you said the Boy Scouts are also involved in building their slingshots for this thing?
Yeah, the Boy Scouts. Well, the Boy Scouts are building their. Well, there's going to be 4 teams, so just 4 of them, right? And then the Boy Scouts have their own team, and they're building one, and they already have a Trabergé, which is a catapult. Yeah. And they said, but if we're doing slingshots, we'll do slingshots. So they had their design built or planned and half built before the rest of us professionals decided on what kind of elastic to use. So yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Stacy.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. Also, the deer at the waterworks also like pumpkins.
I'm sorry?
Our deer at the waterworks also like pumpkins.
All right. You got some pumpkins. I'm going to have Lincoln load up all the smashed pumpkins in the back of his truck. So.
Yeah, I'm sure he likes that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Good. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. And Mr. Mayor, just so you know, my son swims for SUNY Potsdam, so I think I'll see you the first weekend in December.
Oh, it's on.
It is on.
Very good. Council, any further questions? So just to recap, people are invited to come and watch. The participants, the people who are actually throwing the pumpkins, are all either engineers or Boy Scouts. Not sure which group I trust more, but I trust them both. And this will be at Yeaman Park, and I believe it's on the north side of the pond, basically between the houses and the swimming hole, correct?
That's where the chunkin's going to be. We're going to utilize, the park to kind of keep everybody spaced out, so we've got some donuts and cider for, our folks and whatnot. And, we're going to have some raffles and, some 50-50s, trying to do, everything we can to benefit the food banks. So.
Right. So then people should just park in the Yeaman Park parking lot.
Yep.
Very good. And they'll be directed appropriately.
Yep.
Very good.
Okay.
Sounds like a wonderful event. Council, any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Stacy.
Stacy, good luck. Looking forward to it. Agenda item number 3, consideration of a resolution to authorize the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement and sign all necessary documents to transfer Parker School from the school district to the city of Cortland. Motion to consider.
Mayor, I would like us to push this off 2 more weeks.
Oh.
Do we have a full council?
Asking for, if you want a table, we need to put it on the floor.
I asked that we table this.
Okay, but we need to have it officially move forward first. So Katie has her hand up. Does it have support? Sam Adams, and now discussion.
I would like to table this. I'm in favor of this, Mayor. I just want to I would prefer we have a full council when we take this vote.
No, I understand, and I'll state what well, Katie, you have your hand up if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, please. I am willing to postpone this for 2 more weeks, but I really don't want to do it again. And regardless of whether we have a full council or not, in 2 weeks, I want to vote on it because we've been missing people here and there for all sorts of valid reasons. I don't want to wait forever. I think we need to just do it in 2 weeks, please.
You have my word, Katie. You have my word. In 2 weeks, I'll fully support a vote, regardless of who's. But now everybody knows, and so they're going to be here or they're not.
Right.
I guess one question: are we going to have some kind of a contract with these 2 groups, Brian?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things here, and Rick will jump in, but let me have 1 second here to address the council in attendance. And I just want to remind council, as I said in my email, that we've had, well, this has been an agenda item. This is the 3rd consecutive meeting. We've been up front and we've discussed when this was coming up for a vote. So this is not coming as a surprise. This has been consistent and we've been methodical in terms of the discussion. Also, in terms of the 17 previous meetings we've only had 5 where we've had full attendance. And I believe we've had 2 where we had just quorum. So I understand and appreciate the wanting to give people the opportunity to weigh in and vote. We got to be here to vote. Tom, your question was about the potential for contract. Rick, did you want
to? Not if you can.
Very good. So the discussion has been that yes, there would be an agreement and it would be between the 3 entities. Essentially, in terms of rent, we are limited in terms of what we can cost what we can charge. And there really is no intent from the city to make this a profit maker. The intent for the city is that we would be essentially guiding and assisting the 2 nonprofits, guiding in terms of state dollars. There's 1.1 million in terms of lift-in monies that came from our former assemblywoman. There's additional monies through an ESD grant, and that can be paid in stages. And for the lift-in monies, it had to go through a government entity. And the long-term view or plan would be that the city would eventually turn control over to the other agencies. And then we would get out of the landlord business in terms of this property. So we would have an agreement. The 2 entities would be responsible for the care, the maintenance, the upkeep of the property, even while they are tenants. I know that's a little different, and it does put a lot on those organizations. However, you have 2 long-standing organizations here that have done tremendous work. And as much as we've talked about childcare and the concerns about where they are, Capco with Head Start and Early Head Start, this has been a great benefit to the community. It is federal dollars, and the discussion at the federal level about Head Start, Early Head Start is about expansion, not contraction.
Well, to get back to a few things. Normally, this process has been like pulling teeth. Usually, anything else that comes before the council, everything is mapped out in front of us. And it seems like if we don't ask the questions at the given time, we're penalized for asking these questions. And I don't think a contract is out of the realm of asking what's going to be in it. And I don't think a timeline of how all these events are supposed to fall in play is out of the question. And this is something that we do for any project. And this shouldn't be any different.
Absolutely. And I did email as a reminder last week a potential timeline for the next 2 years plus. And I did include in terms of the funding dollars, how that would cover the build out and the startup costs in terms of the construction, and how the next basically 4 phases phases 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 would be the architect. 2 would be the interior construction that is needed. Phase 3 would be the exterior, which is playground and some other things. Phase 4 is repairs, and there's enough money to cover basically half of what was recommended from the Tetra report, the Tetra Tech report, which is the report that the school district had done, which was a thorough evaluation of the structure. And then the final phase would be 5, which would be HVAC. But we are positioned to work through phases 1, 2, and 3 to have the building up and running. Just need to go ahead. And we can, if there are questions that we want to discuss, let me know what additional information we want to seek. Katie Silliman.
Mr. Van Donsel had his hand up. I'd like to hear from him. Nope, he's waved it off. Never mind.
Before COVID, I supplied everybody with a timeline. We prepared all the contracts and have negotiated them. The only thing that's now happened is that we've become available to start up the process, and that's what this is happening. But nothing has changed in terms of the timeline. We'll enter into the contracts and leases on your approval. You'll see them all. The only reason you haven't seen it is because we haven't moved forward. The transfer contracts you've already seen with the school board, and they had the vote that said that they could go forward. But all we have to do is sort of finalize that. You'll be seeing all of the deeds and transfer documents before Brian signs them. But so I'm not sure what different timeline exists. We just had a stall, and now it's picking up again. So if I need to answer more particularly, please call me, off this thing, and I'll give you all of the stuff I have that I think I've provided everybody.
Right back with.
You had the question about timeline.
Troy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was turning my volume up.
There you are.
Okay. Questions.
The biggest concern to me, and probably everybody here, is just the obligation that we're going to have as city representative here. There's no argument about daycare. We've heard that from every meeting from the start to the end. Everybody's beating around the wrong bush here. The biggest concern to me is what is it going to cost to the taxpayers if this project goes south or if it doesn't go south. And I have not seen enough documentation come forward to me or to probably any of us to vote on this project. It's not the argument of daycare. I want this to go through for daycare and everything else. But for the city to be a landlord or an investor, it's you're not selling it to me. Nobody's selling it to me yet. And that's a big concern to me, and I think it's a big concern to a lot of the taxpayers in Cortland. So, I mean, if for Tom to ask, me to ask, Bruce to ask for delays, we have the right to do that. We're not on any time restraints here.
Nope, absolutely. And
you got to remember the numbers of projects and the number of the costs have gone up 400%.
Potential construction costs have gone up, and every year the potential costs do go up. And as we move forward, the only way to know what those costs will be, and Troy, I think you would agree, tell me if you don't, would be to hire an architect, get them to design it, and then put out to bid what they are asking for. Until we do that, we don't know what the real costs would be. Now, the estimated costs were designed or were put together by an architect. That's not back of the napkin by me or anybody else. And in terms of the financials or next steps, what is it that we can gather in terms of information, or what additional help is going to make this so that your concerns are eased? Because I get the concerns in terms of how will this hit the city taxpayer. It's not in the budget. We talk about money from the rescue plan to potentially offset costs and to get the ball rolling. How the budget has been worked out, There's no cost to the taxpayer later.
But there will be up front.
And the worst case scenario, the city sells the property. But the best case scenario, number one, we have control over a very large property. And think about what has happened with large properties when we have not had control over them. And in terms of the future growth and development of the core of our city, we can control our fate. So yes, there's childcare, but it's also stabilizing a neighborhood, and one that we've already heavily invested in with our parks throughout the city. This is a pretty good compliment in terms of what's already there. And how did we get there? Hey, there were 11 people on this task force, and 8 of those 11 people are elected officials. 3 from this council, 3 from the county legislature, and 2 from the school district. They all have dealt and deal with budgets. They all understood what the potential challenges are and still made this recommendation. So it's been, I think, a very good collaborative team effort. I appreciate the time and the effort that they put in. And I believe that their recommendation makes the most sense. Tom, and then Sam.
Brian, have you heard whether the county wants to participate with us with this program?
Does the county want to participate with us? I'm not sure I'm the best person to speak to that. And in terms of the discussions, it's not my place to say. But I do know that there are conversations, and it has been brought forward to the county. And I just have to think that when we're willing as a county to invest $500,000 in ball fields that will help in terms of economic development, that we're also going to be willing to help in terms of childcare that will educate our kids and free up workers. Economic development, childcare, early education, it's preventative.
Does the city want to ask the county to participate? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Yes, we did. At the last meeting, when we had the meeting, I asked Bo and I asked Ann Homer if they would both go back and talk to their colleagues about being a part of this, since it's not just city children that are going to be impacted by this. It's people from outside the city. And I'm not sure, if they were able to do that yet in a formal manner or informal manner. I don't know where that is, Tom. But yes, we did ask those folks to go back and talk to their colleagues.
Is this something that we could get an answer on by the next meeting?
Can we recognize Doug on this, Mayor? He's got his hand up.
Doug, are you referring to Doug Bentley? He's not on my front page. Council, would you like to recognize Doug Bentley?
I would, yes. We're asking specific information from the county, yes.
Very good. Mr. Bentley, you're officially recognized.
Oh, good evening. Thank you.
Thank you for
We
being here.
have a committee reviewing how we will distribute, I believe, $9 million of ARP funding. And the Parker Project has presented a request for $500,000. And that's currently under review, and I'm very confident that the county will be in for that $500,000.
That's great news, Doug. You think you might have an answer by our next meeting in 2 weeks?
I'd like to think so. I'll have to check with that committee. I don't happen to be on that part of that group, but I can certainly ask. Yep.
Yeah,
Doug,
that'd be great, Doug. Thank you.
who should constituents contact to encourage the people on that committee to support Parker? Who should we be writing or emailing?
Well, I suppose any of the legislators, I don't have the list in front of me of who's on that committee. I believe Bill Harding is.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mayor, if I could just clarify a point.
Yes,
please,
Sam.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding, since this has been a topic, all three meetings that I've been on council. So from what I understand, if we were to, and I know there's been an offer from Bruce to table it until next time, but if, just for sake of understanding process, if we were to, authorize the purchase and put out the RFP, do we get to a point where if we get the back and we're like, oh, all of a sudden, all the financial concerns become clear that they are unsolvable? There's doing, like, if we were to pass this part, this just gets us to the next stage of like knowing exactly what things are going to cost and things so that we can go forward from there. Like, this doesn't this vote wouldn't all of a sudden be like, boom, everything's done. This just gets us to the next stage of the process, correct?
So, and this might, you have, I think, a little more information than the general public. So let me kind of catch everybody up. The next steps, as has been discussed internally, but make sure everybody is aware. If council votes to approve, if and when council votes to approve, then the next step would be to hire the architect. The architect does the designs, and what has to be designed in particular are classrooms that go from being for little kids to really little kids. So for example, they have to have doors that go outside. And yes, a 1 or a 2-year-old has different needs in terms of a room than a 5 or 6-year-old. So that needs to be designed. And then you put it out to bid. You say, okay, here's what has to be done. We put it out to bid. Construction companies bid upon it. And then you know what the cost is for that work. Not every classroom needs to be worked upon. Lindy Glennon is on the call this evening. And in our conversations, I understand that some of the classrooms, and I think you talked about paint and some other cosmetic work, some of the classrooms could be occupied as soon as that minimal work is done. But the younger kids, there's more work that has to be done to meet the state standards. Put it out to bid, you get the bids, you start construction, and the second phase would be getting construction done in terms of the interior work that has to be done within the structure. Obviously, that can be done throughout the winter. We broke phase 3 out separately because of time of year. So we're talking playground equipment and some other work that needs to be done for safety concerns outside. So there's playground equipment there, but again, what's appropriate for a 7-year-old, 8-year-old is not necessarily appropriate for younger children. That would be the third phase. And then there was a Tetra Tech report, and they had gone through every building that is owned by the school districts. And they listed, here's what needs to be done in terms of Parker School. And more than half of that list was specific to it being an elementary school. There was discussion, I believe, about, for example, a roundabout or a traffic circle out front for better ease of drop off and pickup of students. So there were things on that list that could immediately come out, but there were some other things, i.e. pointing of bricks, basically repairing some of the facade, things that can be done. And based upon the original estimates and the money that Barbara Lifton was so generously able to dedicate to this project, we could get about half of that work done. And that was in the 100-something thousand. So that is not critical infrastructure work, it's preventative maintenance, but be pretty far along the way. And if we are able to go, an aggressive timeline could see the building occupied by September of 22. And if it needs to be later, then it would be later. But some of the classrooms, again, by Capco, could be occupied fall of 22, even if the entire structure is not complete. And a point of information, we talk about the cost. Well, it's the district's cost currently. And I don't know about you, but I do pay school district taxes. So that cost is still borne by the city taxpayers. Now it's a larger group because it's the whole district. So it includes residents of the town of Cortlandville and residents of the town of Virgil. But hey, city taxpayers, we are paying for the maintenance of that structure. So the longer that it goes before a decision is made, it's more money out of our pockets.
So I think from what I'm hearing from what you're saying, and make sure that I understand, is that some of the concerns that my fellow council members have brought up about finances, we really won't know those numbers until we've moved forward and purchased the property and are able to get that architectural stuff in the RFP. Correct.
If you want to know what's around the corner, you have to turn the corner.
All right. That's what I thought I understood. And then, so my final thing is I, don't love the idea of pushing this another 2 weeks. But I would be open to that if we had the commitment that regardless of attendance, next time we make a vote and get this, just either move it forward or, this limbo thing I don't think is serving anybody.
Further questions or discussion by council? There is a motion on the floor of the agenda item. Bruce, you had expressed the desire to potentially table. I do not believe I've heard a motion to potentially table. Do you want to put a motion forward to table this?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we table this, Mayor. And this was good discussion. It's typically when something is tabled, if the motion is there and second, and there's vote without a lot of discussion. But I'm okay with all this discussion because it's conversation that needs to happen. But this is going to be a very important vote. We have two people that represent 1/4 of the city that aren't here, and I'd like to, and I agree wholeheartedly with Katie and Sam and anybody else. We do this in 2 weeks. Now everybody knows that this is a very important vote, and you need to be here and voice and take the vote and move forward whatever way you think is best. So I think you're right about the 2 weeks. We've waited this long. I don't think 2 more weeks is going to really impact anything. And in fact, we may even have better news in 2 weeks based on what Doug just spoke about and some other things that are in the pipeline. So, and if nothing else, the city, the district, whoever, the district, which is a bigger pool of people, they're paying the heating bills for 2 more weeks. So, if nothing else, Mayor, we're saving that.
Understood. There is a motion, but that was a long motion. We do need support for the motion to table. And that's Katie Silliman. Okay. Motion. We do not have discussion when there is a motion to table. All those in favor of tabling, need you to verbally and give me a visual as well, please. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to tabling? All right, so we're tabling this to the next council meeting. That was agenda item number 3. 4 and 5 are related. Rick or Ray, I believe that we can ask council, do we need to open and table, or can we just take that off the agenda because there has not been a motion to consider yet? I believe we're okay taking that off, correct? I believe you can take it off, yes, because you haven't. And council can tell me if I'm correct or not. But not. So
yes, you can remove the next 2 resolutions so that they ride with the primary motion.
Yep. Very good. So council, is there any objection to simply removing 4 and 5 from the agenda for this evening?
No.
Very good. Hearing no objection, we move on to number 6. Consideration of the resolution for the Department of Public Works to design and renovate the dumpster corral in the Groton Avenue / Orchard Street parking lot, and for the Finance Department to implement a user fee to cover the cost of implementation. Motion to consider.
I'll make.
Tom Michaels, second. Bruce Tytler, discussion.
When we do initiate that project, can we get the overhead light fixed as well?
I'm writing this down. And it's the street light that you're referring to, correct?
Correct.
Well, I think the new thing should be well lit anyway. Whatever we do there.
So the request is for lighting to be considered.
There's lighting there. There are two street lights and one is out. And you really need both of them.
Very good. We'll make sure that's part of the planning.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. So we'll have more information coming back to council on this. Number 7, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract modification with New York State DEC for the food rescue and reuse project contingent upon review of Corporation Council. City Attorney. Motion to consider. Katie Silliman. Second. Jackie Chapman. Discussion. And I believe, Gabrielle, you're here to speak to this if there are questions. I am. That is correct. Yes. Great to see you again. Thank you for being here. Yes. Council, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Gabrielle. And number 8, consideration of a resolution to lift the hiring freeze for the Cortland City Police Department and I believe, Chief, are we looking at asking council for permission to hire 2? Because as of Friday, I believe you received another letter.
Yes, sir. I had talked to you earlier about amending this. Instead of lifting the freeze for one who was retiring on October 24th, I received Friday a letter from a young officer who will be transferring to a agency north of us on October 14th. Will be his last day. So we will be 2 down again. Well, we will be 6 down. So yes, I would ask that we lift it on 2 different individuals.
Very good. So I'll ask council to consider a resolution to lift the hiring freeze for the city police department to hire 2 new patrol officers. Motion to consider. Katie Silliman, second. Bruce Teitler. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then number 9, resolution to allow the city police department to hire 2 new patrol officers. Motion to consider. Tom Michaels, second. Jackie Chapman. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much.
Number 10, resolution to transfer from the wastewater fund reserve for equipment repair and replacement, the amount of $50,198.53 to the fund's operating equipment repair account to fund the repair of the final clarifier sludge collector rail, chain, and flight systems. Motion to consider. Bruce Teitler, second. Katie Silliman. Discussion. And Bruce Adams is present if there are questions. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say flight systems does not mean airborne.
It actually refers to boards. I don't know where some of these names come from.
I got a question for Bruce.
Yes, sir.
When I toured your facility here a few weeks ago, we talked about stainless steel at that time, and I did read your memo that is substantially higher than the material that you've spec'd out. Will we get the same longevity out of the fiberglass system?
Actually, we should get even longer. Stainless steel, although it is highly corrosion resistant, as you know, is not corrosion proof. Whereas the FRP, as long as it's not physically damaged, will last indefinitely. We did have to use stainless steel for a curved section of rail, and Homer Iron Works fabricated that for us, but that's the only part of the rail system that will be metal.
Okay.
Tom, I'm glad somebody in this room understands what Bruce just said.
Well, I went on a tour here several weeks ago, and that was one of the first things that we looked at.
These are the fun things that you do when you're retired, I see.
Yes, I didn't pack a lunch that day, though.
Any further questions for Mr. Adams? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Number 11, resolution to cancel the loan agreement with the Cortland Rural Cemetery and forego collection of all advances and accrued interest made thereon. Motion to consider. Sam Adams, second. Jackie Chapman, discussion. Katie, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, is there anybody from the cemetery board here with us tonight? No. Okay, well, I had asked that they leave the gate open during the daytime, and they explained that they couldn't because of all of the kind of trash and just destruction that would occur and has occurred in the past. So I asked them to consider leaving it open in the summertime during the daytime, because it would be nice for city constituents to get something for their forgiven $8,000 loan. And I was told that they hadn't thought of that before and that they would consider it. So I'm really hoping that they do. And I've written a follow-up email to Mr. Herschel urging him to bring that up with the board. And so I'm hoping to hear back from them. And if I find something out, I'll let you know. But I am willing to go ahead and vote in favor of this.
Very good. Council, any further discussion? Oh, Brooke, Troy.
Well, I guess this is for Katie because she didn't want to vote on this last time because she wanted something in writing. Now she's going to approve it with nothing still in writing. So the moral of the story is, okay, just making sure. I got the story. That's why I was.
Yeah, what are you going to do? We know.
Well, I knew you were. I knew. That's why I said from the beginning. We do this all the time, and nothing's ever in writing, and it goes by the wayside.
But at least they are made aware that some of us would like something for the money, and that expectation is out there. And I think that if it's within their power, if they feel like it's safe to do so, they will do so. After all, it's a beautiful place to walk around. It's a historic place. There are beautiful views. They've created an arboretum up there, and too few people take advantage of it. So I would think that they would want to encourage the public to use and appreciate this beautiful spot in the city.
All right, there is a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Troy, can you audible, please?
Opposed.
Very good. So that's 5-1, Beckwith against. And then, yeah, apologize, but I believe it's required that we have a verbal response on council votes. Number 12, presentation and discussion to set up workshop dates on the mayor's proposed new brand and shiny 2022 budget for the general fund, water and wastewater fund. So before we talk about workshop dates and seeing what we're doing, I did include a one-page narrative for council. In the interest of time, we will post to the internet on the city's webpage. I won't read it to you this evening. I've also asked department heads to give a one-page narrative for each of the departments to outline what is the same, to remind people what services we provide, and also to touch upon major topics and issues. And in mine, and I think in the fire chief's narrative, I'll give the example, we are transferring salaries from one department, the codes department, to the fire department. So if you look at the personnel line in the fire department, it looks like it's gone up exponentially. Well, there is a decrease in another department for those positions, and then we'll have discussion about codes because there's a potential to change how we're doing codes. But we had to move the firefighters that were performing in codes to the fire budget. And we want to make sure that we are very clear with the public about what's budgeted where and what services are provided based upon, hey, where do our taxpayer dollars go? General fund budget, if I can touch upon the highlights, we do stay below the 2% tax cap. Gosh, I forget which year the governor instituted that, but we've been able to stay under all 10 years now that I've been mayor. We did have a year where it was a lot rougher. It was a really challenging year. And what had happened was, well, over 10 years, twice the county has taken a larger share of the sales tax. And the second time when that happened, it really impacted our budget creation for the next year. So we've had some years that were up a little higher because when the county took more, we received less in terms of the portion of the sales tax. But we've been, I think, successful. And Mac's numbers, I think he had us over the last 10 years of an annual growth in terms of the city budget, the tax rate of 1.38%. So less than 1.4% average when you take all 10 years combined. Department heads asked for their needs and then also for their wants or wish list. I hesitate to use the word wish because, you know, what they're asking for, they say, hey, it'd be really great if we had this or that. These are things that provide services. These are things that improve what we're able to do within our community. And the hard part is that we're trying to provide a high level of service while also doing so without being, while being cost effective. Now, the budget, and we'll continue this discussion, but it does tie in with the American Rescue Plan. There are some things that, you know, when we tightened our belts last year, and also in terms of planning for this year, there were things that we said, all right, can't do this here. We don't know how things are going to be in 2021. And here we are most of the way through 21. And I believe the rescue plan funding can help get us back to where we were. So we did some belt tightening. We basically created some potential weaknesses. And it's very important that we do not leave weaknesses as weaknesses. In terms of timeline, charter mandates that I submit a budget to council by October 15, and today is before October 15, so you have that. By November 15, it's asked that you vote to approve the city budget, and then it goes from being the tentative city budget to the proposed city budget. And the way I like to describe this, when you vote, it officially moves it from the mayor's desk to the council desk. You have the opportunity to make adjustments. This is not the final budget. It's required that no later than December 15, there is a public hearing on the proposed city budget. We've been good about having multiple hearings and over multiple meetings so that people have the opportunity to share their thoughts. And then the final budget needs to be adopted no later than December 31st. So the one thing I want to touch upon at the end, and I say make no mistake, there's many similarities in this budget to past years. Sometimes the numbers roll over, okay, it went up this much, it went down that much. But there is a tremendous amount of time and effort that went into this. And it's not me, it's the mayor's budget, but department heads were tasked with difficult challenges over the last 2 years. And using their priorities and their best estimates, we're able to pull together a document that I believe we should all be proud of. So it's a collaboration between many dedicated people, and just looking at it really does not convey the amount of work that's accomplished by all of us, and not just department heads, but all city employees. And I need to say a big thank you for all of our employees, because it's the work that everybody does on a regular basis that gets the job done. And that's what makes living in Cortland just a great place to raise a family. So is there any discussion at this point? Do you have questions, or are we ready to talk about schedule? Typically, we've looked at 2 dates for workshops, and we should also schedule when we will have our public hearings. But I'll open up the floor. Council. So in terms of public hearings, are we okay saying, hey, we'll have a public hearing for the budget before every council meeting from now until it's approved? And that gives people from the public the opportunity to come forward and just share their thoughts.
That sounds like a good idea, Mayor. Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So that'll cover the public hearing portion.
And regarding our workshops, what's our timeline? How many weeks do we have to do that?
So,
Sorry.
Nope, you're good. We're at the October 15. By November 15, you need to move it to your table.
Okay.
That does not mean that it's final. So if I can make a recommendation, you can take a look, read the narratives, and potentially move it from the mayor's desk to your desk at the next council meeting. That's 2 weeks from now. And then potentially have the workshops before and after, or after the next council meeting, which is October 19. Now I'm saying October 19 because in order to meet the November 15 deadline, our next meeting after October 15 is November 2nd. And what else is November 2nd?
Election day.
There you go. And I would like direction from council on whether or not you would prefer to meet on election day, or if the preference is to hold off on election day and then reconvene on the 16th of November.
We always have.
16th.
So Troy has made a motion to say we will not have a council meeting on the 2nd. Katie, you were about to say something?
I was about to say we always have met. Would we meet then possibly the 16th and the 30th so that we would still have 2 meetings in November?
So if we don't meet on the 2nd, we could have a special meeting at another week. It could be the 30th. And if we are doing 2 workshops, those are not official council meetings where we're going to take action outside of potentially revising or changing the budget. However, they would be official meetings. So if you take away the November 2nd meeting, you still have 2 meetings that you are potentially adding.
So you're not keen on a second meeting in November? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm shaking my head. No, I'm not saying that I'm not keen. I was elected to do a job and I've been moving very fast and very busily for the last 9 years and 9 months, and I do not intend on slowing down for the last 3 months.
All right.
But this is a council decision.
Well, what do you all say?
And what's the notice we got to have a special meeting? If it's anything we have that's going to be voted on, we got to put 14 days, right?
Workshop, we would just put public.
Yeah, I know workshop, but I mean, if something major come up, we can still have a special meeting, but if it's still got to be posted for 14 days, correct?
10
days?
Or as soon as is practicable. So there's been times where we've had emergencies and it was less than 10 days. So, hey, we're going to post this immediately and schedule the meeting and try to give as much notice as possible. But you are correct. We can do special meetings. We just got.
So I would say let's stick to one. If some unknown, unforeseen thing can come up that we really need another one, yes, I'll be there if we need to be.
We're
going to have our workshops. So
Katie,
that's
were
my
you asking?
opinion.
Okay, Katie, were you asking us about when you want to? Can you hear me? Okay, Mayor. Okay, Katie, were you asking us about whether or not we're going to have a meeting on November 2nd, or for days for the workshops? I wasn't sure what you were asking us.
I was suggesting that if we skip the meeting on the 2nd, which in the past we have met on election day, and there have been some people, even some people in the public who were disgruntled because it seemed like there would, they wanted to go out and vote, but they wanted to catch our meeting. If we were to skip that meeting this time, my suggestion was maybe we could pick it up on the 30th. That we would still have 2 meetings in November because there are 5 Tuesdays in this November. That was my suggestion. I feel like it's just to keep us moving along.
Sure. Okay. That sounds good to me. 16th and 30th, yes. And I was going to suggest we have the workshops on the 18th and the 25th of October. I mean, that gives us a week and a half to look at it ourselves and ask questions of things we don't understand, and then we can move those workshops along. And then we have time in November if we need to reschedule more workshops. We have time in November to do that.
I'm sorry, which days again in October?
I was thinking the 18th and 25th. And then that still leaves us a couple weeks in November if we need to have more workshops.
Okay.
People think those are too close. Unless people think those are too close together, I'm just telling those to get the ball rolling. I'm throwing those as suggestions.
The 18th and the 25th of October are Mondays.
Right.
I was thinking that the first one on the 26th, so I think we're pretty close there, Bruce, on that date. I'm not sure about. I was thinking the 26th of October, so.
Okay, that works for me. I'm okay with October 26th.
And I was thinking maybe the 3rd of November, since we're not meeting on the 2nd.
That's all. I'm okay with that too.
Which is the Wednesday, right after Election Day.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
All right. Council, we're looking at October 26th, which is a Tuesday, and November 3rd, which is a Wednesday, for workshops. And what would you prefer the start time to be?
3:30.
Oh God, now when I got a mouthful of water.
Can we start? I was going to say 6:30, but I can go with 6. But I mean, what works for folks that have the day jobs?
I could do 6:30, but 6, I'm still putting the baby down to bed.
Okay, so how about 6:30 then?
6:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say 6 and we sing a lullaby.
There you go. Bruce has a good voice.
We might scare him.
Yeah, voice for silent movies.
All right, so we're looking at a start time of 6:30 p.m. That might squeeze me a little bit, but I am not crucial to this. I am assuming it will be virtual meetings.
Yeah, that probably have to be.
Will we still use your Zoom link, Mayor?
I would recommend that for consistency's sake, for the public. As a point of information, workshops are available to the public. People can attend.
Right.
Sure.
I recommend making it as easy as possible. I'll make sure that we are able to utilize my Zoom link.
I like that, Mayor. I like that idea. A lot of people will be able to tune in and voice their opinions.
Now, we do have 2 members that are absent. I'm thinking that they'll go along with this.
Well, I'm not looking to table this particular item, Tom, since they're not here.
No, I know.
I think we picked the dates, and then
If they show up,
they're going to have to,
I'll follow up, and if there's any issues, we'll figure it out.
And aren't we all resolved to cancel the meeting on the 2nd?
It makes sense. You had a good point. People, want to get out and vote and still want to tune into the meeting. So yes, it makes sense to me.
Sam and Jackie, you guys on board with that?
Yeah, that works for me.
I think Jackie's frozen. It looks like her picture's frozen. Oh, there she is.
Jackie, is that okay with you? Okay. So how do you guys feel about meeting on the 30th? Tom says no. Troy says no.
I'm okay with that. We'll have things to do. If we don't meet on the 30th, that just probably doubles up on the 7th and the 21st. So,
About wait till the 16th, see where you're at, and you can make a decision the evening of the 16th if there's a need for a meeting on the 30th, or if you push to the following week. I have no issue with Tuesday the 30th.
I think
after Thanksgiving week. So
I think we can wrap up things before that.
well, I I admire your optimism, Mr. Michaels. No, I mean, what was it now? It's 9:30 going on 9:30 and we're still not through this agenda. So I would say we should pencil in at least 30th. People should anticipate because I don't want to, if we wait to the 16th, people have things going on and all of a sudden the 30th doesn't work. So if we're not going to make an agreement now, I would ask my colleagues to at least pencil in. There's a good possibility we'll have one on the 30th. And if we don't, that's fantastic.
I agree. We'll pencil it in and firm it up next time. We can firm it up on the 16th, but kind of expect to have it. Yeah. And that way Phil and John can weigh in too.
You know, I mean, maybe we have a smaller agenda on the 16th and the 30th, so we have 2 shorter meetings instead of marathons.
Yes.
Very good. Any further discussion regarding the budget? We'll move on to number 13, consideration of a resolution to adopt funding priorities for the American Rescue Plan funds. Motion to consider. Jackie Chapman. Second. Katie Silliman. Discussion. And I know that there's been some talk about taking more time. So I guess the question that I would have, if there is going to be the potential to table this, is there anything that you would like to discuss about this evening?
Yeah, which priorities are we voting on, Mayor? Are we voting on, there were several different plans floated out there, so that's my first question.
So I had shared a, what would I call it, a final draft after the last council meeting. I believe it was on a Friday, and I can forward that along again if need be. But based upon the feedback that council had provided that Tuesday, there was the funding, Bruce, that you had recommended in terms of home repair and upgrade. John Bennett had recommended, I think it was about $40,000, and Tom Michaels, there was a recommendation regarding planning for Randall Park. So those were incorporated in, and I said, all right, this is, I think, where it's at. And in the interest of clarity, that's the document that we are going to discuss and are using to discuss and pushing that to the council agenda. Katie Silliman.
Mayor, could we have that final summary put in the supporting documents?
Do you want to look at it right now? What do you mean?
Are we going to vote on it right now, or are we tabling it until our colleagues are with us?
Why don't we table it? I make a motion, we table this.
I'll second.
And there's the motion and there's the second, which ends conversation. So there is a motion on the floor to table, and it has support. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 6-0 to table. We are tabling.
Until the next meeting.
Yes.
That's a very good clarification. Thank you.
And
Council, motion is to table. And Bruce, was that your intention, to table until the next meeting?
Yes.
Very good. Troy, is that how you understood the motion?
Correct, sir.
Very good. So we're going to the next meeting. Number 14, resolution authorizes the mayor to proceed relative to the downtown revitalization project with Fisher Associates, supplement number 1. Motion to consider. Sam Adams, second. Katie Silliman. Discussion. So supplement number 1, the pocket park that had been proposed on the northeastern portion of Main Street met with some resistance from one of the adjacent property owners, and that made the pocket park there untenable. So there's been a suggestion and a recommendation that a stage be constructed in the Marketplace Mall parking lot. And I believe we've had some discussion about that. So the, what is this called? Supplement. The supplement is with regard to design for that stage. And we have discussed this with council in past meetings, and we have had conversations with the state, because again, this is state dollars. We can't simply make this change. There's a number of worthy projects that were also out there, but the state representatives were clear that they wanted to see a public good project. And what I mean by that, something similar to the park that people in general could and would be able to use. So private projects were not viable. There were a couple of requests, but unfortunately, private business projects were not eligible, and it needed to be within the area for the DRI. So this was what was recommended.
Hey, Mayor, can I just ask a quick question on this?
Go ahead.
I don't know how many parking spaces are going to be impacted by this, but I'm not against this. I think it's a good idea. It looks like a good space. I remember a couple years ago, before the pandemic, music on Main Street was very popular, and it was fun. It was fun to go down and have something to do downtown on Friday and run into people that you hadn't seen in a while. I'm also asking, as you're going forward with this, is there a way we can soften that area? I don't know what that would take. I mean, it's all paved, but there's really not much greenery back there. There's no trees back there. Is it possible we could plant some trees so that 10 years from now, people that are enjoying that, they'll have a little more shade back there? I guess I'm looking for something to make it a little more attractive than just a stage. And I don't know if it's possible, but I'm bringing that up and asking if it's something that could be at least discussed and thought about how they might pull that off.
Absolutely, that can be discussed. The back of the Marketplace Mall. So Bruce, I think I understand what you're saying. As you go along the sides, there's some plantings up front, but along the sides between the VFW and the Marketplace Mall structure, there is nothing. You've got a guardrail, and it's pretty basic. In the back, there are some trees currently, and that's where the stage would go. And in terms of the number of spaces, this is a important point. We wanted to limit the number of spaces that might be eliminated. We need to hear back in terms of design before we know, but the conversation, potentially 3 on either side for a total of 6 at most.
Okay. And then if we could just make it look nicer. I mean, that's part of it too. We want to make it look nice. I don't want it to just be a stage and the buildings and the pavement. And I mean, that was nice and I enjoyed that, but I would prefer something that looked nicer.
No, I agree with Bruce. We should have some kind of a greenery out back there to make it look more like a park instead of a parking lot.
Mayor.
Yes.
There is a ramp so that parking lot is accessible from West Court Street. Will that still be in place?
That's part of, in terms of the design, what makes the most sense. And access to the parking lot, not just from the Main Street side, is something that we view as important.
Okay. Well, I agree with my colleagues on council. It would be nice to have that look more attractive. Perhaps a mural, perhaps some of those tarps across the top or lights strung across the top to make it a more festive and engaging place to listen to music. Cortland has a long tradition of music and musicians, so a mural celebrating that would be really wonderful.
That's a good point, Katie. That's a really good point.
Excellent suggestions all the way around.
It would be nice if we could partnership with the VFW and they can put an access window for concessions. This was talked about years ago when I was part of the music committee.
It's a wonderful idea.
It would generate some revenue for them, and it would perhaps the patrons would be happy as well.
It's a wonderful idea. All right, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Number 15, seeker of part 2 and 3 of the Homer Avenue Gateway Project. Mr. Van Donsel.
This is a project you've been introduced to a couple of months ago, maybe, relative to the Homer Gateway project. It is a many-year project. You've been not unlike Clinton in its construction. But does anybody have any questions beyond that? This is simply an introduction, the seeker. It's nothing that can't be changed if an environmental issue comes up, but it allows the engineers to start the engineering and design process to involve you, and this is what we have to do. But don't get, you don't have to have 100% answers, because there aren't 100% answers yet. This is just making sure that there's been a general review. And in particular, Sam, I know you haven't gone through this before, but do you have any specific questions before I start, or are you comfortable having read it and I can get going?
Go ahead.
Okay. Does everybody have pages 1 through?
Excuse me, Rick. Katie, did you have a question? Katie, I saw your hand up there, but you were muted. You're still muted, Katie.
I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure we were on the same page, which is what you were getting to, Rick. And in my supporting documents, it starts on page 16.
Oh, I don't have it marked that way. It looks like the top of it says Full Environmental Assessment Form Part 2.
Yep, that's it.
And then it has pages 1 through 10.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The first question is impact on land. And the engineers have recommended that, yes, it will have a impact on land, but in each of their instances, except one, they recommend that a no or small impact may occur. In one instance, that is, the proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases, and they're considering that as a moderate to large impact. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Yes.
Yep.
These forms are a little different, so it's not the same way we've been doing it before. It's a little easier to kind of get through.
Okay.
Number 2, impact on geological features. The engineers recommend that no impact will occur. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Yep.
3, impacts on surface water, yes, but they suggest that no or small impact may occur. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Agree.
4, impact on groundwater, yes, certainly during the construction phase, but they recommend that it's no or small impact may occur on A through G. Does everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
5, impact on flooding. They think that there will be an impact, yes, but that in each instance it will be no or small impact. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Agree.
Number 6, impacts on air. The engineers are recommending that answer is no impact on air.
Agreed.
Okay.
7, impact on plants and animals. Similarly so, no impact.
Agreed. Correct. Yep.
8, impact on agricultural resources. Once again, they recommend no.
Agreed.
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 Impact on aesthetic resources. Again, the recommendation is no. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yep.
And impact on historic and archaeological resources. They recommend that yes, but that in each instance it's no or small impact. They are concerned at number A that there are buildings near enough to the State Register of Historical Places that you ought to take note of that. Does everybody agree with their recommendations?
Wait a second.
Agreed.
Rick, I have a question. You said to A, you said no, but it's checked moderate to large impact may occur.
Right.
Oh,
That's what I
okay.
said.
All right. Okay. I just misheard you then. Okay. Yes.
That was the primary impact. Impact on open space and recreation, no impact is recommended. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Impact on critical environmental areas, no impact. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Agree.
13, impact on transportation. They do think that there is some impact
but in each instance, they believe it is no or small impact may occur. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Agree.
Yep.
14, impact on energy, yes, but in this instance, no or small impact may occur. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agree.
Impact on noise, odor, light, yes, there will be an impact, but that they suggest that it's a no or small impact may occur. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay, next page, 16, impact on human health. They do not believe and they recommend that there's no impact. Does everybody agree?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
17, consistency with the community plan. They believe that there's no negative impact on the community plan, that is positive impact.
Agreed.
Yep.
Consistency with community character. They say no negative impact. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Yep.
So that leaves us with, and this is also my recommendation, we've already determined that you are the lead agency and that the determination of significance with this type of construction, the recommendation is that you vote in favor of it being a type 1 unlisted action, given that all of the impact is small and those that are moderate or large can be controlled over the course of time. So does everybody agree that this is a type 1 unlisted action?
I agree.
Yep.
Thank you.
Agree.
And then that's all for it. Does anybody have any questions or want me to go over anything else that I went too fast for? Okay. Then we're done on that Homer F seeker. Very good. Number 16, we have another seeker. Review the seeker for the aeration systems upgrade. Mr. Van Donsel. This is a second time that you.
I just want to jump in. I owe Katie an apology. She wrote me a question asking for details on this on Sunday, and I wrote up a response on Monday and only just now found it in my draft folder. So let me just give you the quick summary. There are no new processes being introduced. No construction will take place outside of existing structures. No new waste products will be produced as a result of these changes. If successful, it may be possible to reduce the amount of polyaluminum chloride that we use for phosphorus removal. In my mind, this is a textbook type 2 action.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick. I'm done.
All right, let's go through the seeker, but I'll remind you that we've gone through this before. This is really a clarifying motion because the minutes weren't clear for the state when it was originally submitted. So you've already gone through all these and determined that it was a type 2. I think you did everything perfectly. I don't know why the state is the way they are, but they are. So, but let's go through it anyway. Starting on page 2 of 3, excuse me. Number 5, is the proposed action a permitted use under the zoning regulations? I recommend yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The adopted plan, I recommend yes.
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 I recommend yes as well.
Okay.
Number 7, no, the site is the question is the site of the proposed action located in or does it adjoin a state-listed critical environmental area? The answer is no.
Okay.
Recommend no. 8, will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic? Again, recommend no. Public transportation services available? Yes, they are, but of no impact. And pedestrian accommodations, bicycle routes, add here, yes. The simple seeker, it's not like the other one, so that's why it's a little different. Does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? Yes, it does. So that's a good thing. Will the proposed action connect to an existing public-private water supply? Yes, obviously. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Agree. Yes. 11, will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities? Let's hope so. Does everybody say yes?
Yes.
Okay, 12, does the project contain restrictions to building, archaeological site, etc.? I recommend no as an answer.
No.
I agree.
Is it adjacent to our state historic preservation office or archaeological site inventory? Not yet, I guess, but
No.
right now.
Okay.
13, does a portion of the site of the proposed action adjoin wetlands or other water bodies? No, given the project it is. And will the action physically alter and encroach into any existing wetland or water body? Recommendation is no to that question. Does everybody agree that this is an urban habitat on number 14?
Yes.
Yep.
Animal or species of animal is going to be impacted?
No.
No.
And that is the project located with a 100-year floodplain? It is not.
Okay.
Engineers. 17, will the action create water discharge? No, was my recommendation. Does everybody agree?
Agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will stormwater discharge to adjacent properties? None expected. The answer is no. Will stormwater discharges be directed to established conveyance systems? Not relevant, so no. 18, does the proposed action include construction or other activities that will result in the impoundment of water? According to Bruce, no. And so everybody agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? No, is the answer. It's not closed. And finally, has the site of the proposed action been the subject of remediation? In that regard, no.
No.
Everybody agree?
Yep.
Yes, I agree with you.
Both of that, and based upon Bruce and my recommendation, do you find that this is a type 2 action?
Yes.
Yes.
And the minutes should reflect that, and we should be all right with everything else. Bruce, if you have anything else that I missed, please jump in.
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'm all set.
Nick's
Rick.
got his hand up.
I'm wrong. I'm not done.
I just had a quick question. It wasn't for item number 16. It was 15, the Homer Ave seeker. I just didn't hear. Do we need to do a negative declaration for that?
Didn't they do that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make sure you did the resolution for that. I thought it was needed, but I wasn't positive, and I didn't want you to
You're right.
have to come back.
For type 1 actions, it can be conditioned on a negative declaration, and I would request that you declare this a negative declaration that there's no negative impact for this project.
Okay, that's the Homer Ave one.
That's the Homer Ave project.
Okay.
Okay.
We agree?
Yes.
Yep.
Agreed.
How's that, Nick?
I think we're good. Number 17, discussion and set a date for a public hearing on amending Article 6 Overlay District, Section 300-61 Floodway Zone District. There is, I believe in your packet, discussion about a floodway zone district. And I guess the best way to describe this, there's been concerns, there's a opportunity for a business to establish itself on Homer Avenue. It's in a floodway, and the current code in floodways is restrictive. And the goal is to make it less restrictive.
Yes, as I remember from talking to Bob Ray about this, it makes perfect sense. Basically, if the DEC says it's okay, then it's okay. I mean, that's sort of the short and sweet version of it. And, you know, why would we want to override the DEC and prevent a business from coming in if they say it's okay? That's my understanding of this. So I think this is a good idea.
Mr. Van Donsel.
We need to set a public hearing date. That's part of the discussion. So I would recommend that we set it for the, what is it, the 19th.
Okay, let's do it.
You're saying October 19, correct?
Yes.
Very good.
Yep.
That's the next meeting. Writing this down. Okay, further discussion. Moving on. Andrew, thank you for being here tonight. Number 18, discussion on the rezoning of a piece of property on River/Port Watson Street, and it has the tax ID number. This is a section of property that is owned by Burn Dairy and would eventually, upon approval, if approved, become part of a new structure down there. Council, has everybody received the memo from the zoning officer?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Van Donsel.
You also got a proposed local law in your packet as well. That needs a date for a public hearing. It's a very straightforward local law, not particularly specific other than the zone change. So if you could set October 19th for the public hearing for the discussion and vote on that.
You're saying we need to have the public hearing on this on October 19th?
It'll be local law, October 19th.
Okay, let's do it.
And certainly over the course of the next 2 weeks, if anybody has any specific questions about anything that you received from Burns' attorney or any other information you've gotten over the course of the time, please call me so that I can properly research and get you an answer before Tuesday rather than scrambling on Tuesday.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any further discussion? Very good. Council, I'd asked at the beginning the opportunity to adjourn into executive session, catch you up on contractual negotiations. We do not anticipate any action after executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session? Katie Silliman, second. Sam Adams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I've opened room number 1 for council. All right, I see 14.
Wow.
4, 5, 6. Thank you to the 6 participants here. Sticking it out with us. Thank you. 10:17 p.m. Woo. All right. I believe we've got everybody back. Oh, wait. Here comes Jackie. She's coming in. She made a left turn in Albuquerque. There we go. All right, Jackie, I see you're connecting to audio. Council members, please unmute your microphone. Coming out of executive session, we're usually muted. Is there any further business to come before the council this evening?
No.
No.
Hearing none, I can entertain a motion to adjourn. Katie Silliman, second. Bruce Tyler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.
Stay connected. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.